Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Forward Corporation and T.R. McTaggart, Angler Quest Boats, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. My name is Mike Avery, and I am so glad to have you along with us. It's so nice to do something that is just part of the normal routine, right? I am here every week talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. And I will be here every week as long as the stars align and God has it in his plans, because I think it's important that we continue to concentrate on the good things, to talk about positive things, to get outdoors, to get some fresh air, to clear our minds, to interact with nature. I find even right now, just going out in the backyard, we got a pond in the backyard full of muskrats and fish and geese and red-winged blackbirds and ducks, and it's just nice to go back there and just commune with the natural world. How was your week since we've last talked? Boy, things are changing fast. I will admit that. And I'm going to try to talk as much about just hunting and fishing and having fun and positive things as I can. But with everything going on in the world right now, it is affecting our outdoor passions in many ways. And so I do feel obligated to talk about that. With this caveat, things are changing so fast that oftentimes the statements I make here in the studio on Wednesday, which are based in the facts at the time, by the time the radio show hits on the weekend or the podcast hits on Sunday night, the situation has sometimes changed. So I will make that disclaimer right now. Welcome to the month of April, by the way. April showers bring May flowers, right? April, where did March go? March kind of flew by this year, didn't it? Maybe it's because there was something going on. I did notice here last weekend, I walked out the door early Sunday morning, and for the first time this year, the smell of springtime overwhelmed me. It was wonderful. It smelled fresh and clean. It smelled like wet dirt. It smelled like night crawlers. Not all of you are going to get that reference, but some of you will. The birds were chirping, the red-winged blackbirds, the robins were chirping. It was just wonderful. And for the first time, it's felt, it sounded, it smelled like springtime. And I got up early to go over to church. Now, we're not having church services, but we are live streaming them on Facebook, and I'm involved in that process, so that's why I was out and about. I get out of church a couple hours later, and the weather's starting to turn. And by the time I got home, it was a full-blown fall day. It was cloudy and windy and cold and rainy. So this time of year, we never quite know what the weather's going to bring us, right? But I have seen, not in person, but I had somebody post pictures of the first morel mushroom of the season. Came out of Oakland County. They laid it in front of a newspaper with a date on it, so we know it was legit. So they're coming. They're coming. You know what else is coming up? Turkey season. I'm so excited for that. Now, there is a certain amount of conversation going around right now that the DNR is planning on canceling the Michigan turkey season because of the situation. I don't buy into that in the least. I don't believe that for a second. For what purpose would the DNR want to close down the Michigan springtime turkey season? Give me a reason. Well, for social distancing. Well, most of us don't go out and hunt in groups of hundreds like they fish at Tippy Dam, right? I do not expect to see the Michigan turkey season canceled at all. And if you are talking right now, well, again, things change very, very fast. But as I am in the studio right now, There is no movement in the DNR that I can find to close the season. So if you are hearing or repeating stories that there is already a plan in the works to cancel the Michigan turkey season this spring, you are spreading falsehoods. Again, it could change, but as of right now, that is the case. And I really don't see that happening. I mentioned Tippy Dam. By now you've heard that all fishing at Tippy Dam has been stopped because people couldn't stay away from each other. If you have fished below Tippy Dam or any of the other hot spots around, and that's not my idea of fun fishing anyway, but if it's your idea, okay. The DNR came in, and the state, and they were at Tippy Dam, and people were shoulder to shoulder to shoulder, as they always are in situations like that. And they said, look, you guys got to spread out. You got to observe your social distancing. And people wouldn't do it. So they came in, they shut it down. Now, that doesn't mean we can't go fishing. There are thousands of places in our state we can go fishing. You just can't go to Tippy Dam right now. I do expect, if people continue to behave as people often do, that we could see additional closures in some very busy areas. Again, by the time you hear the radio show this weekend, that might already be the case. When they announced they were closing Tippy, they said they were also keeping a close eye on some other popular fishing spots across the state, and they did not rule out future closures. I don't believe an entire statewide turkey season closure is one of those. As I am in the studio right now, there are no state DNR boat launches closed. Now, I hear rumors of some county or city-owned launches that have been closed. Again, that could change too. It all depends on us. It depends on our behavior. And you might say, well, look, you might say, I don't buy into this whole thing. It's a government plot. It's caused by started by the Chinese, and it's not really a threat, whatever, yada, yada, yada. I'm no expert. I don't know. I can tell you this, my daughter had it. And it's the real deal. It's a big deal. Thank God she is okay, but she's a young, healthy kid. From what I saw with her, if an older person got this, it would be a problem. So I'm taking it seriously. Wherever it came from, I don't know. I don't care, but I'm going to take it seriously. But you can go fishing. You can get outside. Just a reminder, now that it's April, you do need your new fishing license, though. Also, I said last week, and this is another example of how things change fast. Last week, I said, boy, this would be a great time to have the kids take an online hunter safety ed class. Well, since then, I found out the DNR has canceled, or postponed at least, all of their online hunter safety classes, hunter education classes. I suspect it's the same for the online boating classes as well, but I don't know. Still waiting for my Coast Guard pay. Still waiting for my... I just want to cry about this one. I submitted my documentation to the Coast Guard 2.5 weeks ago for my captain's license. I emailed it to them to speed up the process because I didn't trust the mail or even FedEx right now. So I emailed it to them in exactly the format they specifically requested. PDF files of no more than 8 megs per email. So that's exactly what I did. And I sent it to the specific email address that they said. They said, give us 5 days. I gave them 5 days and I checked. Oh, we don't have it yet. Give us a couple more. I gave them a couple more. We don't have it yet. Here, why don't you send it to this other email address now since we're short-staffed? Okay, I will send exactly the same series of 9 emails containing my documents to this new email address at the Coast Guard. Now what are we going to do about it? Well, we're sorry, sir, but that's the wrong format. We told you couldn't send them in a zip file. They had to be a PDF file. I responded, if you click on that folder, it is filled with PDF files. It is not a zipped file. But just to be safe, I submitted them all again. And I sent them to 3 different email addresses in several different formats. So there's no excuse now. I know they're short-staffed. And I know that getting Avery his captain's license is not high on the list of priorities right now. But I just found it interesting. Whether or not I will have that license by the time my year period is up, I don't know. Hey, we're going into Holy Week. Most of us can't have church services this weekend. Isn't it something to have Holy Week coming up and no church services? A lot of them are doing them online. We are. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit and just say that there's a lot of uncertainty right now. There's a lot of fear right now. We don't know how things are going to turn out, do we? We don't know what it's going to look like 2 weeks from now or a month from now. I know in my heart, because I am a man of faith, I know that God is in control. I don't pretend to know like nobody does. Why this is happening, what the purpose is, what the outcome is, we don't know. But we do know that God is in control. We do know there is a reason for this, and that we need to put our faith, our trust, our hope in Him, do what we can for the people around us, and try to do the best that we can to get through this. But God is in control. We'll take a break. When we come back, Drew Youngdyke helping us get through this all, talking about his outdoor cravings and more coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. By the way, if you want to save 25% on your MUCC membership, use the promo code MIKE. MIKE, and you can save 25% on your MUCC membership. Just go to MUCC.org. Speaking of MUCC, folks I've worked with for quite a while, I have a lot of respect for them. I think they're doing a great job. I first met Drew Youngdyke when he was at MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. These days, he's with the National Wildlife Federation, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Drew, welcome back to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Mike. I'm glad to hear that your daughter's recovering. And just like I think most people, I'm just kind of staying home, hunkered down with my wife and son, and it's good people to be hunkered down with. And like everybody else, is trying to stay low and get through this.
Our conversation when we talked yesterday was going to kind of take one direction, but we did just get some recent news about some big funding cuts that are going to affect an issue you're very passionate about.
Yeah, in the governor's budget, of course, Michigan had pledged $8 million to cover part of Illinois' portion of the local cost match for the Brandon Road project, and that got temporarily delayed. And so I think the long and short of it is we called for this to be a full federal funding project all along. Illinois and Michigan shouldn't have to bear the brunt of a fish that came up from down south. So this is a national problem, requires national funding. I know you're going to have Amy on later to talk in more detail about that. It doesn't mean that the project can't get done, but we need the federal government to step in and take on this project on its own.
I do like the direction you're taking, though. You're not being a fatalist on yours. You're not saying that this is a done deal because of the loss of funds.
No, it's this project all along. Of course, we want it to get done as quickly as possible. It's had delays. It's had delays in the plan release. This is part of the cost of funding the pre-construction engineering and design agreement it's about where the money comes from. The Army Corps of Engineers has a requirement that there's a certain local cost share. And what we'll need basically is for Congress to waive that requirement and make this a full federal funding project. Because really states, rightfully have their priorities in keeping their citizens alive. And that's where the priority needs to be. We understand that. But we need the federal government then to come in and step in and take on that burden when states are strapped trying to deal with keeping their citizens alive with this pandemic.
So what have you been doing, Drew? I know you've been working hard. You've been working from home like a lot of people are. How are you, other than your work time, how are you filling your time?
Well, first of all, I consider myself really lucky, actually, and my wife as well, to be able to work from home. I know there's a lot of folks that aren't in that position, so I understand that we're lucky to be in that position. We don't take that for granted. With a little one, a 1-year-old, it doesn't actually leave a whole lot of free time, but I've been spending it with tying flies. Been doing that quite a bit. I started a new garage gym CrossFit program in my garage gym, and a couple weeks ago I got out to do some squirrel hunting too on some very local public land, and that was a good time outdoors. But that's the last time I've had a chance to do that.
I'm interested in your whole fly tying ventures, though. This is something I want to get involved in. I don't see myself ever becoming very hardcore about it because, there are so many outdoor passions we can choose from. You got to pick and choose which ones are you going to be spending your time on. And you know me, I'm a walleye guy. And I don't think I will ever tie my own flies, but the idea of just using a fly rod on some bluegills behind the house is fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I started getting into fly tying actually just over Christmas. I got kind of a starter kit, and part of the reason is I want to make sure that I can tie all my flies using non-lead materials. I like to fish up north at my family's cabin in the UP where there's loons, so I don't want to lose anything that has lead in it that could poison them. So I started tying my own flies, and of course with this lockdown, it's really kind of the perfect indoor activity to do. And actually, if you've never done it, it's a great time to start because if you can't, if you're not getting out as much, and you're looking for something to do that can be productive toward when you can get back outdoors, you can order one of the starter kits from Orvis like I got, or from Cabela's or Bass Pro or something like that.
Well, what do you need to do this? What's in these kits? What's the basic gear?
So the basic gear is a vise, can be in either a clamp or a pedestal, a pair of sharp scissors, a bobbin to hold the thread, some different thread, and then the starter kits will have all the materials of the different fur and feathers and flash, synthetic materials to tie these, as well as some of the different hook sizes. I ended up getting the Orvis kit. It comes with instructions as well as materials for 16 different flies. So everything comes together, and you kind of go one fly at a time and learn how to tie that way. And I think most of the starter kits will have that. But there's some great online resources as well from Tightline Video that I've been following. And, with a lot of the fly shops and guides down, shut down now, my local fly shop, Schultz Outfitters in Ypsilanti, has been doing online fly tying nights either on Facebook or Zoom or YouTube. So you can follow along that way and learn how to tie some new flies. I've
been trying to get a hold of Schultz to get him on the show here. If you talk to him, tell him I'm trying to get in touch with him, please. And I was just going to say, isn't it interesting that there is so much information and knowledge available online now to do things like this? And this is a great time to take advantage.
It is, as outdoorsmen and women, we want to be outdoors, but in a lot of situations, and I heard on the pre-show when you talk about people crowding at places like Tippy Dam and those getting shut down, there's places where it may not be the safest thing to get outdoors, even where it's open right now, if it's a crowded trailhead or you don't have public land close to you. And so some of these indoor activities are things that can keep us busy and also make us both productive and really looking forward to when we can get back out there again. So tying flies, cleaning your guns, cleaning your rods, mending your nets, practicing casting in the lawn. There's lots of things that we can do to keep us busy, keep us thinking about getting out in the field again, and keep us productive toward when that day finally comes.
Boy, you just made my to-do list a lot longer. As I'm thinking about these things to get done, several of them are things that I need to get done, Drew.
Well, I put a question out to some of my Facebook friends who hunt and fish, and I got a lot of responses back about what you're doing to keep busy, and more than I thought. I think a lot of people were saying that they're organizing their gear and that kind of thing. I think Dave Rose said he's going to have a fire sale when he's done. But there's a million things on the to-do list that we can do. We can take care of our gear. We can make new gear. Some people are building arrows or reloading. That time at the bench, that time in the lawn, that time practicing. You and I both shoot recurve, so practicing in the garage or the basement or the lawn if you're able. Those are all things that we can do to keep us busy right now.
You mentioned you didn't want to tie a fly with lead because of the loons. Tell me more about that.
Right. Well, there's some flies, especially weighted flies, that traditionally get tied with lead wire, or you might have lead split shot on them, or lead dumbbell eyes for certain flies. And I use non-lead alternatives. The reason is when I lose those flies, which unfortunately I do too often, if loons eat those, they can get poisoned by the lead. I love loons. They're the kind of that thing that makes the cabin just kind of a really neat, kind of almost spooky place sometimes. And I don't want to harm them. There's also eagles on that lake. So if they're eating a fish that, a big pike that broke off a line or something, and they get that, they could get poisoned by that too. So I hunt with all non-lead ammunition, and I fish with all non-lead fishing tackle as well.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask, if it was just the loons for some particular reason, but it's the wildlife in general you're concerned about.
Yeah, it's just that loons, what they'll do is they'll dive down to the bottom, and if you have a lead split shot that broke off, or a lead fly, and they'll dive down to the bottom and ingest those little pieces, thinking that they're pebbles that they'll grind in their gullet. That's how they kind of chew their food, and so they're pretty susceptible to it. There's a pretty high level of the loon mortality is attributed to lead poisoning. So that's something that just as an individual angler, I can at least reduce my contribution to that.
I gotcha. I understand. This property, is this in the UP or Northern Lower?
That's up in the Western UP. It's a property that came through from my great-grandpa, who was a iron miner in Ironwood. And it's kind of shared by all my mom and her cousins, and all of our family can use it. And it's a place, boy, I wish I was spending quarantine up there, but, they don't have the hospital resources up there that we do down here in Ann Arbor. And, I'd love to get up north to my parents too and get fishing on the Pigeon River, but I'm staying put. I don't want to accidentally transport that up there, not knowing I might have it. So as much as I want to get up north, it just makes sense to stay here right now and tie flies.
I gotcha. You were talking about using non-lead for your hunting and fishing. Do you notice any difference in performance or how you have to use that gear when you go to a non-lead option?
No, well, when it comes to lead or steel shot, with a shotgun, I'm a terrible shot with a shotgun anyways at a moving target. So I miss just as many with the steel shot as I do with the lead. I'll say that. I went out hunting for squirrels though a couple weeks ago, and I'm using even copper 22s out of, get this, an 1892 lever action rifle.
Oh my gosh.
22. So you can use copper out of a rifle that old. And it shot great. I only had a shot at one squirrel, and it was dead on at 25 yards. And the squirrel dropped where it was, or there was no pass through and it running off or something like that, like I've read. So at least it works for me. And when I first started fly fishing for pike, using the weighted streamers to get down to them, I put some lead putty on it, and that worked for me. I caught pike. So copper ammunition, especially copper bullets, generally are higher performing. They start getting on the market because they're more of a premium bullet. But as far as my own use, I haven't seen any drop off. But again, it's not like I'm the world's best hunter or fisher to begin with.
Drew, I love the fact that you love to do things the old ways. You love the old days. Listen, we'll talk more about that though. First, we got to take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Drew Youngdyke of the National Wildlife Federation. The website nwf.org. nwf.org. When we come back, I want to follow up on that with Drew about why this desire, why this passion, why this draw to make things harder than they have to be. Why does he shoot a recurve? You don't have to shoot a recurve. You can go out and shoot a crossbow these days, which I have nothing against. And I also want to talk to him about a couple of other things as well. His outdoor communication passions, podcasting, writing, social media, and more coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM. That's 580 AM. You can hear us in Taos on WIOS, AM and FM, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Speedy Blaze. Speedy Blaze, a Michigan company. You know, I love that. They make a safe, clean, water-resistant alternative to firewood, and it's safe to cook over because it's made from recycled hardwood. I think it's slick as can be, and we're actually going to use it for our fires on our patio this summer. Check them out online at speedyblaze.com. That's speedyblaze.com. Great product, great company, and some great people. Speaking of great people, right now we're talking with Drew Youngdyke. Friend of mine. I first met him when he was at MUCC, Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Then he jumped over to NWF, National Wildlife Federation. And Drew, I almost forgot. Hey, congrats on your recent promotion.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was kind of it shifted my responsibilities a little bit. I was doing. Sorry for folks that don't know. I was promoted to the manager of sporting communications for the National Wildlife Federation, and I was doing a little bit of that, but it made it a much bigger part of my job, as well as Asian carp communications.
So are you still with the Great Lakes or the Midwest part of the organization?
Yeah. Yes, I kind of have a 50-50 job. 50% of my time is doing the national hunter-angler outreach communications, and then 50% of my job is in the Great Lakes communicating about the efforts to stop Asian carp.
Wow. Got your hands full, Drew.
It is, but I'm kind of blessed to be able to put all of my time into something that I love and actually get paid for it.
And you and I have talked about this before, but before you jumped over to National Wildlife Federation, I had a different perception of the group. I thought it was more of the Tweety bird watchers and the bunny huggers, and I wasn't really a big fan of the organization, but you've convinced me that I was looking at things from the wrong direction.
Well, we're that too. We're just also the MUCCs of the world, of the country, because we're composed of 52 independent state affiliates that set our policies. Michigan United Conservation Clubs is our Michigan affiliate, and about 29 of our affiliates are like MUCC. They're the representative of hunters and anglers in their state, and 23 of our affiliates are more environmental or, Audubon clubs or societies or watershed councils. And so our policies are where those kind of two sides can find agreement, and our membership comes from all corners of all of their memberships. So we're the Tweety bird watchers, the bunny huggers, but we're also the bunny hunters and the bird hunters and everybody in between, as long as they care about wildlife.
So do you find yourself in some interesting situations? Do you have to walk a fine line sometimes?
Well, what I have to do is the same thing that I did when I was at MUCC. I have to make sure that my communications follow the policy resolutions that our affiliate set. And whatever my personal opinions might be on something, if I'm communicating on behalf of the organization, just like MUCC has to follow what its Rod and Gun Club set as its policy, and of course I had 5 years of doing that, so it's a pretty easy transition. I just have to stick to the policy, and that's really important, because without that, our staff represents viewpoints from all over the spectrum. And if one staff could say, you know what, I believe in this one thing, so I'm going to go off on this one thing, we'd be in a million different directions, and we wouldn't have any members, and we wouldn't have any support. We wouldn't be able to get anything done in Washington. But because we have that bipartisan support, because we represent people from all sorts of that spectrum, and we stick to that objective policy that our affiliates set every year, it means that we have credibility in Washington from both sides of the aisle, and we can work on things that are bipartisan priorities, and that's been a successful model for 80 years.
Drew, I consider you to be a very, very effective outdoor communicator, but you do take advantage of every venue and option that's out there.
Yeah, well, it's a new conservation media landscape, right? I'm the last year of Gen X, so I'm a little bit older generation. I just turned 40, so I'm not that young anymore. But when I was first going to deer camp, for the most part, conservation media was the outdoor magazines on the coffee table there. Well, now people aren't subscribing to that as much in print, although I still write for multiple magazines and have a column in Woods and Water. But people are consuming media through podcasts. They're reading blogs. They're doing it through video. So we have a film coming out this spring called Northwoods Unleaded. And you have to be in all those spaces because I have a responsibility to reach as many hunters and anglers as I can to make sure I'm connecting them to our conservation mission. And so I can't leave a group of hunters and anglers who might hear me on the radio or hear me on a podcast or read a blog or read a magazine. I can't leave them out because we need their support for wildlife.
Well, Drew, you're doing a great job. I really congratulate you, and let's all be patient till this all blows through, and then why don't you and I get back out there on the Angler Quest and do some walleye fishing on Saginaw Bay?
Looking forward to it, Mike.
All right, Drew
I'll bring
Young.
a dropped line.
Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, sorry. I'll bring a sinking line for my fly rod.
Well, you can teach me how to cast because I was going to go up to Jay's and get all outfitted. And of course, Jay's is temporarily closed, so I'm on hiatus. So maybe I'm going to check out some of these online videos you were talking about. Drew Youngdyke of NWF, National Wildlife Federation, NWF.org, NWF.org. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, let's talk about the weather. We're always talking about the weather, and we can't do anything about it. Well, either can Michigan's meteorologist Mark Torregrossa, but he sure can talk about it. So we will do that after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK. That's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. And in the U in Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Now, right now, unfortunately, Reader is... They can't do anything right now. They're not considered an essential business. Although they take care of my yard, I consider it quite essential. But they'll be out there as soon as they can. I can promise you that. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com, readerlandscaping.com. And it's really unfortunate that they can't be out because this weather, as it's turning right now, would be a great time to get out and get something done. When I start thinking about the weather, the changing weather patterns, I immediately think about Mark Torregrossa, Michigan's meteorologist. You can see his writings on mlive.com, and his website, farmerweather.com. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Mark, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yes, same.
Last weekend, I walked out early Sunday morning, and for the first time, springtime hit me. I heard it. I smelled it. I felt it. Now, by Sunday afternoon, it was cold again. But boy, this time of year, where it's a roller coaster is what we're going to see. But there's change a-coming, isn't there?
Yes. This is a roller coaster time, but I feel like we're going to have a lot more as the roller coasters going up with excitement and not as many plunges where you scream. So it generally looks like the weather is tracking, I would say, about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than average.
Wow.
As we go into April. Yeah, that's on the verge of significant, but not super abnormal. And remember, the normal weather now is really a moving target. Our average high temperature is going up a degree every 2 to 3 days now. So, when we get out to mid-April, mid-50s are kind of on the cool side, But right now, mid-50s are a little bit warmer than normal. So I think we're pacing for an early spring, and you can get out and singularly enjoy it.
Yeah. As long as you're 6 feet from people, get out and enjoy it.
Yeah, and that is a nice thing, is that you can get out into your yard, and I guess you can get out into the outdoors and not be in a big crowd. So while we have this time, unfortunately, on our hands, we can make the best of it. I'm going to plant peas, spinach, and probably potatoes this weekend in the Toro Grosso garden.
Not in a greenhouse, but out in the garden?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of those things really like it a lot chillier than you'd think. Here in the Reese Frankenmuth area, we've got several farmers that have 50% of their sugar beets already planted.
Wow.
So you can do a lot of stuff. And remember the Veterans Day snowstorm that buried our leaves?
Yeah.
Those are ready to be removed now too, unfortunately.
Also, we got to talk about water levels. Boy, they're not coming down in the near future, are they?
No, probably not. Lake Michigan, I just wrote a post about this on MLive the other day. I haven't seen the official numbers. I jumped the gun maybe by about 2 days because I knew it would be a record, but Michigan and Huron, same lake obviously because it's connected by the straits, that set a new record March level, and that was a record by about almost 4 inches. I have to remind you, 1 inch on Lake Michigan and Lake Huron is 800 billion gallons. So 4 inches, I think I figured it out to be come close to 4 trillion gallons of water more in Lake Michigan and Huron than has ever been in recorded time, back to about 1918 in March. And Lake Michigan Huron is expected to stay above record levels all the way through July. If you take their upper range in July, that would actually put it as the highest level ever recorded, not just a month, say, of July, but it would actually beat October of 1986. So, yeah, we still have a lot of water in the Great Lakes, and let's just hope that the rain slows down some but doesn't dry up totally, because sometimes we get what we wish for and then we go the other way.
Well, as a meteorologist, you've been dealing with that your entire career.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to go the other way. I think we have a warmer than normal spring. I think we have ample moisture, but not in numerous rains. I think we have a solid rain every 5 to 7 days, which means that you probably will have 2 or 3 days to get in the outdoors and have things dry out a little bit before the next rain. So it'll be a little better than last year. And then I think that parlays into a very warm summer with ample rainfall.
Perfect, Mark. Appreciate that. I will send people to the website, mlive.com, and your website, farmerweather.com, and you and I will talk again soon. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Be safe.
You be safe, be healthy as well. We will take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to talk about kayak fishing. I think it's very cool. It's inexpensive. It's easy to do. And it's not just for some young, in-shape person. Dave Mull will be along with us to talk about that.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Forward Corporation and T.R. McTaggart, Angler Quest Boats, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show. And welcome to the month of April, by the way. Holy Week coming up, kind of a special time for many, many people. Special time in the world right now, isn't it? So I'm so glad that you're along with us. I hope you are staying well. I hope you are staying healthy. And you are making the most of this situation however you can. I say this is the second hour of the show. And just a reminder, this is Outdoor Magazine Radio is primarily a radio show. It is recorded, produced, broadcast, designed as a radio show. And that is the first place that people get to hear it on our 29 affiliates across the state of Michigan every Saturday and Sunday. But after those radio stations have a chance to air the show, we make it available as a podcast. Now, why do I do that? Well, number one, I want to get the biggest audience I can. I want to reach as many people as I can. But not all of our affiliates carry all 3 hours of the show. And there are some parts of our state not covered by the broadcast signal of the show. So the podcast makes it available for you to be able to hear the show and to check in. I think probably the best place to start looking for the podcast would be on the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. MikeAveryOutdoors.com, my website, kind of the online clearinghouse for all things Outdoor Magazine Radio and Mike Avery Outdoors. That's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I also put the show on our Facebook page, the Mike Avery Outdoors Facebook page. That is quite an active page. We got something like 77,000 people on there. I do weekly live videos on Wednesday as well. You can check those out. The podcast is on my Twitter feed. I'm at Avery Outdoors on Twitter. I put it up on LinkedIn. I put it directly on iTunes. I put it on Google Play. It's also on our mobile app. Speaking of iTunes and Google Play, we have a mobile app that you can download free from the iTunes Store or Google Play Store. You can hear it on iHeartRadio. You can hear it on SoundCloud, on Spotify. I put it on TuneIn, Stitcher, Radio.com, and the newest place you can hear/watch the podcast version of the show is on YouTube. I know you're saying YouTube is for video. Yeah, well, we have kind of a pseudo video version of the Outdoor Magazine Radio show, and that's now on my YouTube channel, Mike Avery Outdoors, as well. So there are lots of ways that you can hear the podcast version of the radio show, regardless of how you are listening, regardless of when you are listening, regardless of where you are listening. Thank you very much. I do appreciate you being along with us. Appreciate your support over the years, and I will continue to try to do my best on this show, however I can. And that includes bringing you what I consider to be great guests. Dave Mull is one of them. Dave Mull, a friend of mine. He's been around the outdoor industry, especially the fishing and boating industry, for a long, long time. He's an avid angler. He's an outdoor writer. And recently, much of his passion has been directed at fishing from kayaks. And that's what he wants to talk about, as well as other things, along with us this week. Dave, welcome back to the show. How you doing?
Hey, Mike. I'm doing okay. Thanks for asking. So far, everybody in the family is healthy and not affected by all this BS going on.
Well, perfect. I'm glad to hear that. And we actually catch you today while you're on the water, aren't you?
Actually, no. I got some pressure from an editor to get something to him. little deadline fun on a hump day instead of out casting for largemouth.
Darn work.
That's the way it goes, man. Friday. Friday's going to be a beautiful day, and I need to get it to him tomorrow. So,
there you go.
One way or another, I'm going to be on the water.
And at least for you, though, work is fishing related. At least I think for the most part, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Yep. Yes, it is. I've been real lucky with my career, for sure.
Have you had a chance to be on the water much this spring?
Yes. In fact, I have. I started my year in Alabama at the very first BASS Bass Nation Series kayak tournament. I did not do well. And then about a week later, I was in Texas at Lake Fork in another Bass Nation tournament. And in both tournaments, I finished a stellar 112.
In both of them?
So at least it's kind of a unique way to suck.
Well, I guess 112 is your lucky number then.
Maybe so. Maybe I should look at some lottery tickets or something. I don't know, but yeah, I've done much better up here. We went to a lake a week ago, and I caught a 20 and a quarter incher largemouth. It's the only fish I caught all day. And my buddy caught one that was 20 inches. And then Saturday we went to another lake, and I was throwing the old Ned rig, and I only caught 3 keepers of 14 bass, but the keepers were, one was 18 and a half, the other one was 20, and the other one was 20 and a quarter.
Wow.
So been catching some big ones already this year. Having some fun for sure.
Are you morphing into more of a bass angler? I mean, I used to think of you as a salmon and trout guy, maybe a walleye guy, maybe a multi-species guy. Are you turning into a bass guy on me?
Well, yeah, I would have to say yeah.
Yeah.
I fancy myself a multi-species angler, but that seems to have been multi-species are like smallmouth and largemouth lately. So, but I enjoy competing in all the kayak tournaments that are available locally and statewide. So I've been going back to my real fishing roots, which has always been bass for me.
Well, and kayak fishing is continues to grow like crazy. It's getting some legs now, and I give you credit. You were one of the initial promoters on this thing. You've been pushing this for a few years now, and I think people are really they're hearing your call, Dave.
Yes, I don't know if it's my call. I think once people start fishing out of a kayak, they really enjoy it. But I've been doing it for about 7 years now, and competing in tournaments probably for 6, maybe 7. Losing track here, Mike. It's getting a little old.
I hear you.
Remember.
I hear you.
It's been great. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm turning on as many people as possible to it, doing a lot of writing about it, and participating.
Well, what's the appeal? Great. What's the appeal, Dave? Because I look at my big, beautiful, comfortable Angler Quest, and I'm thinking, man, that is the way to be on the water. Why would I want to jump in a little, tiny, tippy, uncomfortable kayak that I need to propel myself and go fishing?
Well, everything you just put in that statement is not necessarily true.
I know that.
They're not uncomfortable. In fact, you can take a lot of the chairs out of a kayak and put them up in your living room and sit in it and watch TV if you want to, very comfortably. They are not necessarily tippy. You got to be a little careful. I've tipped over a couple times in different kayaks, but that's just because I got overconfident and wasn't paying attention. And most people who tip over in a kayak, I think this is just anecdotal, but I'll bet you if there was a survey taken, people who tip over in a kayak have been doing it for 5 years.
Really?
They just get overly confident and they think they can do anything. And then one day it's like, little butt ballast went too far over the side. And boy, when a kayak flips, it's like a mousetrap. It's just like, you get to that point, and it's not like, here I go. It's like, whack, you're in the water. So, but, it hasn't happened since I did it 2 years ago. So I'm much more careful.
Why a kayak instead of a canoe?
They're much better set up for fishing, really, and more comfortable, I think. I mean, I'm sure there's comfortable canoes out there, but the way kayaks are set up, you got plenty of leg room. You don't have to kneel. You're sitting in a very comfortable seat. And I think kayaks are more mobile and more versatile. I think they're more stable than a canoe, at least the canoes that I've had. And, the kayaks these days, like I just got one. You said that you have to propel it yourself. I just got a Old Town Autopilot 136. And the Autopilot means it's powered by a Minn Kota Autopilot motor. So, it's not a inexpensive boat. It's a $4,000 boat. But, with the Autopilot, you can just set it to where you want to go and re-rig lures or troll or whatever you want to do. And it's super comfortable, super stable. I have not gotten it registered yet because
you can't.
Secretary of State.
Hey, Dave, listen, I got to cut you off. I got to take a break, but we will continue our conversation. I want to hear more about that. That piques my curiosity. We're talking with Dave Mull, outdoor writer, expert angler, and expert kayak angler. And we will talk more with him after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO. That's 1360 AM. You can hear us in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. And you can hear us in Flint on Super Talk 1570, WWCK. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. Right now, Linwood Beach Marina is closed. They are not considered an essential business. Although since my Angler Quest is at Linwood Beach Marina, I would beg to differ. But when they can, they will be up and running and ready to rock. The boat launch there has been, people have been using it. But Linwood Beach Marina itself is officially closed. Check out, for now, temporarily. Check out their website, linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. So maybe this would be the perfect time for me to take up fishing from a kayak. Dave Mull has been trying to get me into it for the last couple of years, and I know he's right. I know I would enjoy it. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Dave, I forgot to ask, where do we find you online? Where is there a Facebook page or something I should send people to learn more about you?
My Facebook page is probably the best. Just Dave Mull. Yeah. Dave Mull,
and you'll know him. You'll know him from the red beard. You'll know you got the right guy, and he'd be your red beard sitting in a kayak. I bet.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think I just changed the 2 photos to me fishing from a kayak or holding up a fish in a kayak or something. Yeah. But but I think back to I had a chance to, while I put on hand sanitizer during the break there.
Oh, just talking to me from the phone made you nervous for my germs?
No, just habit.
Yeah, I got you.
I think it was 20 minutes since I last applied it or something. I don't know.
Oh, geez, now you got me reaching for mine. Doggone it. There we go. Oh, Pat's going to take some too. All right, we're good.
I wanted to talk about a couple of things that you brought up. One, the difference between a kayak and a canoe, fishing-wise, is today's kayaks are so easy to rig with things to basically make them a little spaceship with electronics and rod holders and other accessories that make fishing more comfortable, productive, and fun. Although, you can still, obviously, a lot of people enjoy a kayak just for the simplicity, and they don't put electronics on and stuff. But, most of the competitive guys that I hang out with are, trying to outdo each other with large electronics and all sorts of stuff like that. But the other point is what you're talking about as far as self-propelled. We talked about the autopilot, but a lot of people, it's very, very common in tournaments to allow electric motors on them. Old Town isn't the only one. I think they might be the only one that comes with the motor already installed. But there's a lot of ways that guys are putting Minn Kotas and motor guides and stuff on all sorts of kayaks. And it's not that hard to do. There's kits available. There's brackets available and all that kind of stuff. And I swore I would never have a motorized kayak. And for the first 7 years of doing it, I was true to that. But it took me about 5 minutes. And in one in Florida, I got a sneak peek at the Old Town ones. And it is just so nice to have a motor in a kayak. I hate to say it, there goes my last form of exercise, but I don't care. It's really nice to be able to move quickly and do other stuff while you're moving, like whether it's fishing or re-rigging or whatever.
Well, and as powerful as these motors are these days, and as light as a kayak is, you can fish all day, I'm sure, without worrying about running down your battery.
Yeah, you sure can. I think like the one I have recommends a size 27 group battery and like 62 amp hours. That will last you all day for sure.
So you as a bass fisherman, you're using this to get from spot to spot or to hold on a spot or whatever. But if you were a walleye or even a salmon guy, you could actually troll in one of these things, couldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I've trolled out of ones I've had. I've done some trolling for salmon and not walleyes yet, but that's certainly on the horizon. And they're nice for trolling out of. You can put a couple of rod holders in front of you. You can run your offshore planer boards off to the side, and you can do just about anything you can do in a boat other than go fast and go great distances. The other appeal of kayak fishing, I think, and why it's really starting to boom is, you don't need a special tow vehicle for it. You can put a rack on most vehicles. I've seen guys driving like little like hatchbacks that have stacked 2 kayaks inside somehow. I throw mine in the back of my pickup mostly, although with this new one I'll probably go back to a trailer just because it's going to be, heavy with the battery and stuff. But it's not a big initial investment to get started. Now's a really good time to get a kayak because so many people are upgrading. There's a lot of used ones out there that people can pick up for not a lot of money. You can probably for $500 get a used kayak that's all appointed and ready to go.
What would we look for, Dave? That's great advice. What would be, a guy like me who has no idea what I'm looking for, where would I start?
Well, there's 2 basic kinds of kayaks. There's a sit inside that everybody thinks of when they think kayak initially, but the fishing ones are mostly sit on tops, which means they're self-draining. They're basically rotomolded, hollow boats that are one piece. That if you take water over, they have scuppers that drain it out. And then look for ones that have your track systems. You can get those as aftermarket. There's a lot of companies that are building them right in manufacturing. These allow you to put your depth finders, your Anchor Wizard anchor systems, your rod holders, all that kind of stuff without drilling holes. So you're ready to go, and you don't have to worry about, drilling the wrong hole in the wrong place. Very easy to rig. You want to, if you're going to get a kayak, you should try and get in it and see how comfortable you are in it. Whether you want to paddle or get a pedal system or an electric motor. There's all sorts of options out there, different sizes. You don't want to get one that you're at all uncomfortable in as far as tippiness or anything like that. And there's plenty of them out there that are very, very stable. But yeah, I would say you want to look for something that you can put rod holders in. You want to look for something that has some space to put your crate in back behind you with some rod holders in it. Like I typically take 7 rods with me when I go fishing. You think in a kayak you'd be limited to rods, but not really. One of the things that I'm excited about with this new one that I have is it has so much space in front of me that I can now take my my Dachshund Gus fishing with me. So, because he has trained me through his, how do I say this, his bathroom habits, that if I leave him at home, I'm going to come home to a mess, even if I leave him in a crate. But if I take him with me, he's fine. And lately I've been just leaving him in the truck with the windows down, and he's fine. But he enjoys going along. And with the pedal system that I've had, there's just no room for him. He'll be perched on my shoulder, which makes fishing a little bit problematic. But with the new one, he'll have plenty of room to bounce around in front of me, and everything will be good. He's got his own life jacket and everything.
Oh, my gosh. You got to send me a picture of this. I got to see this.
Definitely. I definitely will.
What size kayak, what length am I looking for, Dave? Or just anybody in general looking for?
Yeah, well, it depends on how big you are. I mean, fishing kayaks range from right around 10 feet to up to about 14 feet. And actually, Hobie has one that's a giant, single or dual kayak that's 17 feet and still called a kayak. But the big ones, like this new one's 13 and a half feet. I've been fishing out of a 12-footer for the last couple of years. But you just want to find one, that you are comfortable putting on top of your car or in the back of your pickup, light enough to do that with. And the most important thing is that you're comfortable when you're in it, as far as its stability. And you might not need a 13 and a half or a 14 footer if you're just going to go out with a couple of rods and poke around with it.
Yeah.
But I recommend most people who get serious about fishing end up with a pedal drive or an electric motor, just because you can fish while you're moving. Not anything bad about paddle kayaks. I have one that I use pretty much exclusively in rivers, just because drive systems can get wrecked by sudden rocks and logs and stuff. And I love paddle kayaks. I mean, I love to do it, but it's just not as efficient when it comes to fishing. So, it's to each their own. There's lots of Facebook pages in Michigan, especially like the Michigan Kayak Trail Tournament Circuit has its own Facebook page. There's a Topwater series of tournaments that has a Facebook page. And, anybody who has any questions can post them up there, and people, for the most part, aren't the kind of like, well, we answered that question 3 years ago, just do a search. That they're very helpful.
Good.
When you have even real basic questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question.
Well, Dave, listen, I appreciate you bringing us up to speed on that. I'm fascinated by it. It's one of those things I'm probably going to keep dragging my feet, but sometime in my future, I see myself sitting on a kayak going into my beloved Skinny Water on Saginaw Bay and trying to snake some walleye out of there. I just think it would be a riot, and I appreciate you letting us know about it.
I will bring one up for you to use, Mike. I promise.
I know you will. And listen, if my angler quest stays locked up at Linwood Beach, it might be sooner than later. Dave Mull, appreciate your time. I'll send people to his website or his Facebook page, Dave Mull on Facebook. We will take a break. When we come back, Amy Trotter from MUCC checks in right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Saginaw on WSGW-FM 100.5. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. And north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since the mid-'40s when Roland Boning invented a ferrule type. These days, Boning continues to innovate, come up with new products celebrating 75 years in the archery industry next year. And, I was thinking, and Drew Youngdyke brought this up in the first hour, with a lot of us spending more time at home and kind of looking for projects, why not start building some arrows? Boning makes some wonderful arrow building kits. Check them out online at boning.com. It's BOHNING, boning.com. While you are online, of course, check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and this website, MUCC.org, MUCC.org, the website for the Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Amy Trotter is their executive director, and she's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Amy, how you doing? You hanging in there?
Trying the best I can, Mike. Running a organization from home with two small kids at home also is a bigger challenge than anticipated, but we're making do.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I hope everybody stays healthy in your household. But the things have slowed down, but some issues continue on, like this funding issue. That kind of, I guess you could see it coming, but. How big of an impact is this, Amy?
Well, in terms of the state budget, we were marching along. The governor had issued her executive budget proposals. Things were going along and having hearings and getting feedback. And then when the coronavirus really hit Michigan, certainly, priorities change. And unfortunately, one big priority for the conservation community has been essentially deemed non-essential at this point, and we just got that news this week. So we were pretty disappointed to hear that, but I guess albeit not too surprised.
And this is funding for Asian carp?
Correct, yes. The state of Michigan had agreed back in 2018 that we would kick in a significant portion of the local match required for the planning, pre-construction, engineering, and design phase of the Brandon Road Lock and Dam, which is well vetted, well researched. It is the answer to trying to keep Asian carp out of our Great Lakes. And we were going to kick in $8 million of that local match that's necessary to get this process moving along. And unfortunately, even though it had been set aside by the previous governor in 2018, and it was going to be spent yet this year, it was moving along with no opposition at all to the idea of it. But unfortunately, priorities being as they are, there were significant vetoes made of this supplemental bill to really focus on, the health crisis before us.
Well, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but could this be a sign of many things to come as far as hunting and fishing and conservation related issues? It's hard to argue that in the face of a pandemic, maybe they aren't essential, even though to us they are, but maybe from a societal perspective, they're not essential.
Yeah, the one thing we did back in 2006 is had the foresight to constitutionally protect all of our recreational and, game and fish funds in the Constitution. So in order to subvert those uses for some other purpose, they would have to go to the Constitution, which means a vote of the people. So we believe that's not likely to happen, that we are not going to be able to reprioritize our restricted funds. However, everybody's going to feel the burn from this, and we definitely have, some challenges that we were already experiencing before all of this hit, which is the decline of hunting and fishing licenses. So it remains, unknown at this point to see how game and fish funds, stabilize or don't stabilize or continue to fall in the face of a disease. One thing that is interesting is I think Pittman-Robertson might actually increase because it sounds like a lot of people are buying guns and ammo still. So there could be a federal bump from that perspective of that restricted fund, but the other ones here in the state are already under pretty significant challenges.
And I would imagine naming 2 additional NRC chairmen is way at the bottom of the list of priorities for the governor right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that is going to be the case. The legislature has to be in session in order to, move things along anyway. I do believe the NRC is going to try to meet in whatever fashion is now allowed under the Open Meetings Act with electronics to still do the business of the, natural resources management here in our state. So they are making every effort to still be able to meet and move regulations. Currently, they have a quorum. There are 5 commissioners. So as long as they can all somehow remotely dial in and take part in that, we shouldn't have a problem about still doing the government business.
Well, Amy, I appreciate you remotely dialing into the show and doing a good job under some tough conditions. I will check again with you soon and just remind people at the website, mucc.org, you can save 25% on your membership by using the promo code Mike. Thank you, Amy. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Mike.
Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, mucc.org. Use the promo code Mike and save 25% on your membership. We will take a break here. When we come back, we'll wrap up this second hour with this week's Ask Avery question segment, talking about what can you do outdoors right now. We'll discuss that in depth right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in St. Joe on WSJM. That's 94.9 FM. You can hear us in Mount Pleasant on WMMI, AM and FM, 830 AM, 92.3 FM. And you can hear us in Lansing on WILS. That's 1320 AM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can be... and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And the way the Ask Avery segment works, this is something we've been doing for the last few months. Seems to be going over quite well. It gives you the opportunity, the chance to submit a question to me to be answered on the air. You can submit that via email. My email address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Or you can post it on the Facebook page or Instagram or anything like that. I will find it. Or you can submit a question for me to ask to somebody else, like somebody in the DNR or something along that line that maybe you wouldn't have access to that I might. This week's question came through on Facebook, the Mike Avery Outdoors Facebook page. And it's sent by Thomas Colvin. He says, "Hey, Mike, with the travel restrictions ban in place, how are people traveling to fishing places like Tippy Dam and Saginaw Bay?" He said, "I bought my new boat at Linwood Beach Marina and would love to get out on the bay, but I live in Lapeer County and it's a little drive to the bay. Plus, the 6-foot rule still is still to be observed while fishing, even from a boat. Plus, in a tow vehicle, you can't have anyone who doesn't live at the same address as you." Tom, that is a great series of questions. I will answer these to the best of my knowledge at this point. And as I said in the first hour of the show, the situation is changing so fast that what I say right now may or may not be the case by this weekend by the time you hear the show. You did mention Tippy Dam. Of course, Tippy Dam has been shut down to fishing because anglers there were not observing the social distancing regulation of standing 6 feet apart. So they came in and shut it down. And they, being the state, the DNR, said, listen, if we continue to see this in other places as well, don't be surprised if we shut those down. So I'm thinking boat launches. I would not be at all surprised if all DNR boat launches and fishing piers are affected by this as well. This is in our hands. Okay, so my answer to Tom, and I wrote this out to him, great questions. Legally, you are allowed to drive to your fishing spot. Now, I did hear something this morning on our Facebook Live that there's a statement going around saying that you can only drive 30 miles to your fishing spot. If that's the case, it's news to me. I haven't seen that in writing anywhere, but it is something to investigate a little bit more. Yes, you do have to observe the 6-foot rule. Now, you could probably make that happen in your boat. Yes, absolutely, though it would be tough. Technically, you would need to drive in 2 separate vehicles, unless maybe you've got a a big crew cab where one of you could sit in the front seat, one of you sit in the rear seat on the opposite side of the truck and crack the windows. You might be able to get away with that. Then there's also the question of handling your fishing gear, like your rods and reels, without disinfecting them. This is why guys like Lance Valentine decided not to run his charter operation before the state declared charter fishing non-essential. Lance said, look, I've been talking to doctor friends of mine. I can't guarantee that, I can't sanitize my boat between fishermen. You're gonna touch each other's fishing rods. You're gonna grab a net for somebody else. So you can, from Lapeer, as far as I know, and I haven't seen anything in writing other than this, you could drive to Saginaw Bay and go fishing. For now. This also leads to the next question. The rumor going around, the rumor mill, the anti-DNR people are saying, they're just using this as an excuse. What they're going to do is they're going to close down the Michigan turkey season. Why would the DNR want to close the Michigan spring turkey season? To what goal? To what end? What would they accomplish, and why would they want to do that? And what's the difference between turkey hunting and fishing for steelhead below Tippy Dam? The number of people involved, right? I don't know anybody that goes out and hunts turkeys in a group. Turkey hunting is an individual or just 2 or maybe 3 guys at the most, and you're not going to be sitting on top of each other. You're going to be spread out a little bit. So I have seen nothing that makes me think at all that the DNR really intends to close the Michigan turkey season. I think that's one of those things that gets started and just gets a life of its own. Also, as of the time that we are recording this show right now on Wednesday, April 1st, there are no DNR boat launches closed. There might be some county or municipal ramps closed, nothing from the DNR. But that could change, at least with some of the very popular ramps. Take a look at Detroit River right now. Lake Erie, they're very popular fishing spots. The DNR has said we are keeping a close eye on these, and there could be additional action taken. So, Thomas, you bring up a very, very good point. Technically, you can go out hunting and fishing. You just have to be aware of the guidelines, and I'll leave that in your hands. Again, thank you to the folks at Security Credit Union for making the Ask Avery segment possible. You can check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to talk some pan fishing in the shallows with Steve Griffin, and then we'll wrap up this week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. That's in hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Forward Corporation and T.R. McTaggart, Angler Quest Boats, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. I do appreciate it. And I appreciate you being along with us this week, this hour, this third hour of the Outdoor Magazine show. Glad to have you along with us as we continue to celebrate the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan. A celebration of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and all things outdoors, all things good, wholesome, healthy, fun, biologically sound, biologically necessary, and in the world today, maybe just a nice break from everything else that's going on. And I'm glad that you are able to share some time with us here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. So what is going on right now? What can we do? Hey, we can go hunting and fishing. We can. We just have to keep our distance from other people. Which means, like Tippy Dam got shut down because of the crowds there. Some of the boat launches, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see those start getting a lot of attention from the state. Maybe by the time you hear the show this weekend, that action will already have been taken. But you don't have to worry about getting out in the woods, walking around, doing some scouting for turkey season, getting out and shooting your bow. Maybe go out and chase some panfish. You don't have to be close to people to do that. I mean, you can be out there you can be a boat sneaking along the shadows. You can be walking the bank. I think pan fishing, especially this time of year, takes us right back to the basics. Chasing some bluegills on the beds or going after some crappie. I mean, how much fun is that? Forget about all the high-tech, fancy gear, the big boats, the big equipment. Let's just go back to our basics for a little bit. Steve Griffin is a guy who appreciates that type of activity. Steve is a guy who has made his living as an outdoor writer for many, many years, a very well-known outdoor writer here in Michigan, and a fishing expert, in my opinion. And he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Griff, welcome back. How you doing?
Well, thank you, Michael. I'm doing splendidly. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to live in a wonderful state. I'm happy to be surrounded by beautiful natural resources and making the most of it.
Yeah, I agree. One of the few advantages to having the perspective of our maturity, if you will, besides getting in the first hour at the Kroger store, is that we've been through the Kennedy assassination, we've been through the riots of the late 60s, the draft issues, we've been through the stock market crash of 87, the financial crash of 08, and in between those 9/11. And we know that ultimately it's difficult, but we get through. And we do that, I think, in large part by sometimes grabbing a rod and reel and going and find a quiet place to maybe catch a few fish. So I don't think the time has ever been better than right now to get out and find some bluegills and crappies and some peace and quiet away from all the news.
And what a great time of year to do this. I mean, it's the perfect time to start looking at some of these bluegills, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it only gets better. This is the time of year where I usually go out and find out that I'm 2 weeks too early and I get cold. And from there on, the sunny days get better, and by the time you get through April and into May and on into June, it just gets better and better and better. The species shift a little bit, but it's fun to be at the leading edge of so much fun.
You say the species shift. Now, you love to fish for everything, and ideally, I think if you weren't on the phone with me right now, you'd just soon be in some river chasing steelhead right now, wouldn't you?
I would love to be chasing steelhead, but not to the point where I want to risk my health or anybody else's health. So the fish are just going to have to be on their own this time. It's always a battle for me. I would hunt turkeys more seriously if they didn't do their thing in between prime steelhead time and prime bluegill time. There's just too many opportunities. It's kind of like we have the same problem in fall, and we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Picking out what you're going to do. And I like to do it all, and I don't do any of it especially well, and that doesn't bother me a bit. I just like to keep smiling, doing what I'm doing today, and looking forward to what I'm going to be doing next week. So.
And let me ask you then, speaking about this progression that we all take in our outdoor, I can't call it a career, but our outdoor passions, I find myself looking at things much, much differently than I did when I was a young man. It used to be, I got to catch the biggest, I got to kill the most, I got to catch the most. The older I get, the less important that is to me.
I agree. And the other thing is I used to think I had to start every day at 4 a.m. to go do it. And I've certainly gotten over that. I don't mind getting out there at the crack of 9 once in a while. I think that tapers off. I enjoy harvesting fish and game. I love to process it. I love to cook it and eat it. So I'm not to the point where I can forego the harvest part of it. It just doesn't have to be a 10-point buck to look good in my freezer and look good on the plate. So I take my satisfactions in different ways, but it's still very much keyed to finding protein to bringing something home to cook. I still love that.
Well, I do too, and in fact, my wife Denise made some wonderful bear chili the other day. It was one of those cold days, and chili just sounded perfect. And it was a bear that I had taken in Ontario hunting with my recurve, and there is something so satisfying about taking that process from the field or the water to your freezer and your table. I mean, it's satisfying because we've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years, but we can still do it today and get absolutely as much satisfaction.
Well, and it's interesting. If you go through the grocery store right now, the shelves that are among the emptiest are the baking and the Crisco and the yeast and that kind of stuff. And I think people are going back to their roots to find a little peace, a little solace, a little satisfaction. And we can do all that. Plus, we can go to the freezer or we can go to the canning shelves and find things that we've collected that can now nourish us and our families. And I think there's a real strong emotional tie to that I embrace, and I'm sure you do too.
I do. I absolutely do. And because we were brought up in outdoor-oriented, outdoor-passionate families, we have that. Now, for people who didn't grow up the way we did, I suspect the situation is different.
I think so, but if you look at how much easier it would be to acquire those skills now, if you want to learn how to skin a deer, how many YouTube availabilities are there, where before you had to find the old guy down the street to teach you. So I think that if somebody wants to get into something new, whether it's cutting up a deer or bluegill and crappie fishing, they certainly have more opportunities now, whether it's through shows like yours or other venues. There's no excuse for not doing it if you want to.
Absolutely.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Do you get into springtime sucker fishing at all much? Because that's a tremendous opportunity, and smoked suckers are pretty good.
They are. I have not. I just haven't happened to, and I probably should. But no.
Well, like you say,
I usually jump on the crappies as soon as I can, and it's just about time for them to start gathering up in the shallows, and it'll go on. A buddy of mine lives on Sanford Lake, and he said Mother's Day is always the very peak of crappie fishing, although there's 6 weeks or more of good fishing leading up to it. So it's time to get out there.
You mentioned crappies first. In my mind, I'm thinking the bluegills come into spawn first. Not true?
I have always thought it was crappies and then bluegills.
Yeah, well, listen, you would be no. I will accept what you tell me. I acknowledge you as the guy who knows this area. So don't.
Well, that's kind of dangerous. But I do know that I catch crappies in April and May, and I catch bluegills primarily in May and June on the impoundments around here. Every lake is different, and that's one of the great things in this particular year about panfish is no matter where you live, there's probably a place that has bluegills or crappies within a few miles. You're not going to violate the governor's edicts by sneaking out a few miles to catch some fish. It's not like driving clear across the state to do something. But on the lakes near me, that's pretty much the seasonal pattern. I go in April, it picks up right through the month, and then May both species, and by June it's more bluegills. So.
And you're right. Every little pond, every lake seems to have some kind of panfish in it. You know where I live. I'm there in town, and I got bluegills in the pond behind the house.
Sure. And what a wonderful year to have that, right?
Oh, I've thought about that.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of geese back there, too, but let's not go there.
No, they're not snow geese, so you don't have a spring season, right? Right. So listen, the other thing about panfish is there's so many different ways to go after them, Mike. I mean, my first bluegill was caught with a cane pole at my grandpa's cottage. You can go anywhere from that to modified ice fishing gear, not the rod so much, but the lures, the teardrops and waxworms and small bobbers. You can fly fish for them. You can throw little spinners for them. You can fish them in a foot of water. You can sometimes find them in 12 feet of water. Just whatever suits you. The crappies and the bluegills at one point or another will see it your way and cooperate. That's not the case with every species.
We're talking with Steve Griffin, a very well-known outdoor writer here in Michigan. Steve, where do we find your written musings these days?
My primary outlet now is Michigan Outdoor News, where I have a column that runs every other issue and occasionally features. I've also done quite a bit of work lately for Boating Magazine, if people pursue that interest. But it keeps changing. Who knows who I'll be writing for next month? I've been freelancing for more decades than I like to admit, and it's an ever-changing marketplace. So,
and you've been very good at staying up with that. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Steve Griffin. I want to talk a lot more about springtime panfish fishing. It's easy, it's fun, and we're getting close to that time of year. So we'll talk with Steve, and then, of course, we'll wrap up the show at the end of the hour with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. That's coming up still in this third hour right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on two stations, one being the Twister 92.1 WTWS, and the other being 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN, and you can hear us in Ishpeming on WIAN. That's 1240 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Great Lakes Charter Training. If you've ever wanted to be a licensed captain, and I mean a fishing charter, dive boat excursions, sailing charters, towboat captains, sightseeing tours, whatever. If you're going to take people on the water for hire, you need to be licensed. I think Great Lakes Charter Training is the way to go. Captain Mel Stackpool and his guys do a wonderful job. Now, they are obviously closed down right now because you can't get together in groups. But they're working on an online option. They expect to have approval from that from the Coast Guard at any time, and I will certainly bring you up to speed on that. Check them out online at glctraining.com, glctraining.com. I took my class from them last spring. Waiting now to hear from the Coast Guard. I submitted my paperwork 3 different times now. I sent it electronically via email to try to get through the system, to try to at least get acknowledgement of receipt of my documentation. Still waiting on that. I'll let you know how that goes. But check out the website, glctraining.com, glctraining.com. Right now we're talking about fishing, talking about panfish, bluegill, crappies. I remember Steve Griffin said something that made me think about this. Very, very young, going out in a rowboat with my dad and my brother. There was not even a motor on the boat, just the oars, my dad on the oars. We went out to some of the local lakes there in West Michigan, and we had cane poles. My brother and I had cane poles. I think my dad might have had a spinning reel or a bait caster or something, but yeah, we'd lob that bait up in the lily pads with a cane pole, and oh my gosh, it was so much fun. That connection to the old days. That's one of the things I love about this outdoor lifestyle. It reminds us of things we used to do with people who maybe aren't even here anymore, but we can go out and do them today. Steve, let's talk a little bit more about this pan fishing. And when you mentioned cane poles, like my brain just fired on all my different the chemicals in there. It brought back those wonderful memories of that collapsible cane pole when I was a kid.
Sure. And, you know, it's worth thinking about these days, too, since we are limited to being 6 feet apart or being with people with whom we live. Instead of rushing off someplace with one of my fishing buddies right now, I'm going to take my wife out fishing because we can be together and we're not violating any of the warnings or anything else. So what an extra incentive to take someone from your family that maybe you don't spend a lot of fishing time with, introduce them to the sport, take a picnic lunch along, make the best of it. I think there's good things that we can unearth through these difficult times, and pan fishing with family members certainly has to rank right up there.
Absolutely. This is going to seem so basic and so obvious to you, but we have people who listen to this show who really don't know how to get started. They've never done these things before. They are interested. I mean, we said you can find panfish, bluegills, crappies just about anywhere, but where in the lake are we going to find them? Where do we look for them?
This time of year, I'm going to be along the shorelines. I'm going to work that from the shoreline out to maybe 10 feet of water, and I'm going to see where they are on a particular day or at a particular point in the season, because that will change. When we've had nice weather, warm weather for a few days, they'll move up shallow. When it turns cold, they'll go deep, and they may shut off completely, but it's still worth trying. I would use any kind of rod and reel with 4 or 6 pound test line. Fluorocarbon's a little better, but I wouldn't stay home if I didn't have any. And use a small hook, maybe a teardrop. For bait, I'd use a wax worm or a small red worm. Increasingly, the little plastic baits are, I say, just every bit as good as live bait. So I generally will have both with me in case there's a slight preference in the day. And then a float, then a bobber. And so try the different depths, set it a foot below the surface to start with, and if that doesn't work, try 2 feet, and then cast behind the boat, and just try everything and find the pattern for that day. And that's a big part of the fun of fishing for me, is finding out what's going to work, doing the detective work. But it's pretty simple. You get the bait in the water and wait for the fish, and if that doesn't work, try a different spot or a different depth. You're not retrieving, so you don't have to worry so much about the action like you do with some of the other fishing approaches. It's just like you see in the 100-year-old pictures with the cane pole and the float, and lob it out there and see what happens.
And for kids, I mean, if there are perch or bluegills or crappies around, and you lob that out there, it's going to start getting pecked at. And the kids love to watch this bobber. Should I do it? Oh my gosh, it's so much fun.
It is, and in almost every lake that I know, there's no shame in taking home a few fish for dinner. And if you really want to make a kid's day, serve up some cooked fillets from fish that kid has caught, and you've got somebody that's going to be talking at an advanced age of how much they enjoy fishing. You're going to have somebody hooked for life on the fun of going out and exploring nature and maybe bringing home a meal.
Do you have any great recipes, or are you one of those guys, hey, let's just fry them up and enjoy them?
When it comes to panfish, I do a boneless, skinless fillet, and I roll it in a 50-50 mix of complete pancake flour and cornmeal so that it just has a little bit of coating on it. I like to let that sit for a few hours if I can. It seems to adhere to the fish a little bit better. And then I set it afloat in a half-inch of hot oil. When it's brown, I flip it, and after that, I eat it. Rinse and repeat, as they say.
That's as good as it gets. Is there any stigma against fishing and keeping panfish off the beds?
I have heard people express concern. A long time ago, Ray Shepard, who you probably remember, the DNR biologist, Ray did a lot of bluegill fishing, and he would tag fish just for fun. That was his hobby. But he always said there's no shame in keeping them between 7 inches and 9 inches. He said if they're over 9, he'd like to leave them to progenate more fish. On the beds, if I was getting a lot of big fish off the beds, after I got a couple or a few, I would move. I wouldn't beat them up too badly. They're so prolific. I don't know how much pressure it would take to make a difference, but I don't want to be the one that makes that difference. Compared to other species, there's very little reason not to keep a mess of fish within the daily limit.
What about perch? Do you ever get into the perch these days?
I don't as much as I used to, but it certainly I would. If we're talking about the chronology of crappies leading to bluegills, then I would say perch come first, and then crappies, and then bluegills. So as soon as the ice goes out this time of year, if you time it right, say the cuts along Saginaw Bay can be tremendous when perch come in. On inland lakes, they seem to go on something of a feeding / spawning binge as well. I don't think they're quite as widespread in terms of populations that you can focus on, but they're certainly a great fishery and great fun.
Well, and perch are one of those fish, when the perch are biting, people will stop whatever else they're doing. They'll stop walleye fishing, they'll stop trout fishing, they'll stop salmon fishing. If there's a perch bite going on, that's what they're going to go after.
That's been really interesting for people in our area, where the walleye fishery on Saginaw Bay is world class. And as you say, when you get wind that somebody's starting to catch some 11-inch perch, those people will just abandon the walleyes and head for perch. It's really kind of fun to watch.
I got some correspondence from a guy the other day. He said, Avery, I'm so sick of you promoting that walleye fishery. Your walleye fishery, he called it mine. It's not mine. My walleye fishery has ruined the Saginaw Bay perch fishery. And he went on and on about how, people love to fish for perch and people with small boats and didn't have these big fancy boats. And I get it. The walleye fishery has definitely impacted the perch fishery, and it has changed the fishery. And wouldn't it be nice if we could get a wonderful partnership of both of those fisheries out there?
Yeah, but I think the fisheries follow the populations, and there's been all sorts of shifts in the food base, water clarity, water level, everything else that now is favoring walleyes and works to the disadvantage of perch. It'll swing back the other way in time. And the perch fishing now, I would argue, is better than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The walleyes eat most of the small perch, but the ones that survive also eat small perch and do well. The perch are reproducing in the millions. It's just that they're being gobbled up by fish that used to eat smelt and alewives and some of the other things that are now gone. So nothing stays the same for very long.
And I'm glad to hear you say that the perch fishery is better than 5 or 10 years ago, and I have to certainly agree. And I think what it is a lot of these people are comparing it to the fishery of 50 years ago. It's not as good as it was when I was a kid growing up. Well, when you look back at things when you were a kid growing up, our perspective is often a little bit skewed over the years.
Well, I'll accept that maybe it was tremendous 50 years ago, but if you take a wider view, there were no wild turkeys in this area. You seldom saw a Canada goose. You might hunt for the full season and maybe see one deer, maybe see 2 deer. So many things are markedly better now. The walleyes are better. The fish are consumable. The water's clear. So I think generally there's been more improvement than decline. It's, as you say, if I fondly remember the perch fishing of 50 years ago, I'm going to be disappointed today if that's all I focus on. Mm-hmm. But I think part of enjoying the outdoors is embracing the change that's always taking place out there. It's always a new day. There's always something new to learn and ways to adjust.
What a wonderful perspective, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I could not agree more, especially right now. Great advice, Steve. And I wish you good fishing. I hope you catch a bunch of bluegills, a bunch of crappies, enough perch to make you happy, and maybe when things settle down, we'll get out on Saginaw Bay and chase some walleye, too.
I can think of nothing more enjoyable than going fishing with you, Mike, and not having to stay 6 feet apart. We're certainly going to appreciate that day when it comes in a way that we never would have otherwise. When we can be in a crowd and not be nervous, we will have weathered quite a storm.
Steve Griffin,
Until then, go fishing.
Absolutely. Appreciate your insight. Appreciate your words of wisdom and advice. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, a few more things to chat about. And then, of course, wild game chef Dave Miner will help us wrap up this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Holland on WHTC. That's WHTC AM 1450. And FM as well, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on our flagship station, News Radio 790 WSGW. I say flagship, never with any intended disrespect to any of our affiliate stations. 29 stations now, by the way. Still working on that number 30. I am confident it's going to happen. But I'm in the studio of WSGW right now. Very few people in the entire building, in fact. I'm in here. Pat Johnston's in here doing a wonderful job, as always. There's a couple of guys across the hall, and that's it for the entire building. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, cooling, ductwork, sump pumps, you name it, everything to keep you warm, dry, comfortable, cool, whatever the season is. The folks at Wilds can help you out. I have invited them into my home for 20 years or so. They do a wonderful job, and I can highly recommend that you give them a call as well. Or check out the website, wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. I always enjoy my conversations with Steve Griffin. He just brings a wonderful, refreshing, simple, basic, pure, wise leaning to the conversation. And I appreciate that. And we was talking about bluegill fishing with a cane pole. It brought back memories of when I was a kid. And just, I really appreciate that. Really appreciate it, especially right now with everything that's going on, right? The world is an interesting place right now, but we can still enjoy our outdoor passions. We just have to do them differently for a little while. And listen, if you're listening to me in the UP, you're thinking, listen, I never see anybody anyway. It's not a big deal, and I get that. But for the people who are downstate, it does change things. For example, again, Tippy Dam. Personally, I don't have any desire to fish with anybody shoulder to shoulder like that, so it wouldn't bother me. But and just a reminder, by the time you hear this show this weekend, this could already be in place. It would not surprise me in the least if this was already in place. But the DNR has said we are keeping an eye on other areas and further action may be warranted. Meaning, I'm thinking some of the more popular boat launches. Think Detroit River right now. We could see more activity. It is the month of April, by the way. Welcome to the month of April. I'm already seeing pictures of morels popping. Not a lot, but a few in the southern part of the state. Turkey season is coming up. And I am not one of those people who is buying into the theory that the DNR is going to close spring turkey hunting season. Why would they? For what reason would the DNR want to close turkey season? I don't understand that line of thinking in general anyway. But when you're turkey hunting, you're out there primarily as an individual, maybe two hunters, rarely three, but you're not sitting on top of each other like you are elbow to elbow at Tippy Dam. So I intend to be out there chasing birds with my Predator recurve, and I'm looking forward to it. I talked last week about online hunter education classes. Those have all been postponed until things settle down. I suspect that's the case for the boating safety classes as well. I continue to wait for my Coast Guard paperwork to be done. I think I'm going to be waiting. I think in the overall scheme of things, processing my charter captain's license is probably right near the list of the bottom of the list of priorities. And I understand that. I get that. Right now in our world, we have reprioritized a lot of things, haven't we? Some things that we have to do right now, some things we have to do differently right now. You might not like them. You might even think, I don't believe this all. I think this is all just a hoax. I think this is all just something perpetrated by the government or a different government or terrorists or the media or whatever. But the fact remains, we do have to deal with it. So let's make the most of it. Let's get outside whenever we can. Get out, do some fishing, do some turkey season scouting, look for some mushrooms, look for some morels, look for some sheds. Get out, get some fresh air, get some exercise, let your mind decompress. Get the hell off from social media, at least the news sites. You're not going to get good news from there. Get away from the TV. It's going to overwhelm you. Get outside. Get some fresh air. Get a different perspective. And just hunker down and wait for things to blow over. Don't give up all social media, by the way. Keep checking out the Mike Avery Outdoors Facebook page. where I do a Wednesday night live every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, where we give away a Michigan brand ham. We're giving one away this week coming up, a ham for Easter. Thank you to the Grillo family. I do appreciate that. And then I'm also live every Wednesday morning at 8:45 from the Outdoor Magazine radio studio as well. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, check in with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. I know he has a recipe planned for us. I don't know, though, if it's a fish or a wild game recipe. I encourage you to check out the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. If you want to get in touch with me, you can always send me an email to Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. We'll take a break. Wild game chef Dave Miner coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. Thanks for joining us this week. Appreciate you being along with us. We're here every week. It's a 3-hour show on 29 stations across the state of Michigan. The podcast available just about anywhere on the line or online. I go to the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, to learn more. If you have been with us before, you know that I love to wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. And guess what? It's my pleasure to be able to do so once again. David, welcome back.
Hey, Mike, it's good to be still kicking with all this going on.
Yeah, it's nice to have you along with us. So you still hunkered down up north, Dave?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had to come home, get my meds and stuff like that, and headed right back up and been trying to do a little perch fishing and like that. Haven't done too good.
Nothing yet. Hey, do you have? You must have some panfish there in the pond there at your place, don't you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we got some. I had. Let's see. Last year we caught a couple of 12-inch gills. Put them back for breeding stock.
Yeah,
I mean
nice.
They were huge.
Huh.
And we got a few perch, not much, but a ton of bass. We caught enough bass the other day for a fish fry.
Oh, nice.
Last year we caught 200 out of here for fish fries. And it looks like we have the same amount again.
Well, I know where they're going to end up. They're going to end up on your plate.
Oh, man. Our bass, because our water is crystal clear and cold in this pond, they taste every bit as good as walleye and perch. We've had fish fries, and people couldn't tell the difference, actually. We get them about 16 inches long. I threw a perch rig out when I was casting with a jig, and I caught a double header and 216 ounces.
I bet that was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was. They were tugging to go in each other way. So anyway, let's do I got a bronzed or a blackened catfish. I see on your page there's a lot of big cats being taken. So this is a great way to use some of the larger ones. So if you want to make your own blackening spice, you want to start off with about a cup of paprika and a tablespoon each of ground sage, basil, thyme, oregano, marjoram, white pepper, black pepper, cayenne for as hot as you like it. Or you can buy some. The Cajun spices are always really, really good, or you can doctor it up to your own needs. We make it at the restaurant by the gallons of it because we use so much. So you want to skin these boneless, skinless cats per person, about 10 ounces or so. And you're going to take that blackening spice. You're going to need, if you want to do it with eggs, you're going to beat up a couple of eggs and then dredge it in flour and then sprinkle as much or as little on as you like of this spice. And if you're going to do it another way, you could melt down some butter or olive oil and sprinkle the spice on it that way. But if you take the egg wash system, flour, then egg, that's going to keep it much more moist because you're going to bronze this instead of making the pan so hot. You want a nice medium hot pan. And then after you've either floured it or egged it or no flour, just put the butter on it with the spice. Medium hot pan, a little bit of olive oil, brown it on both sides, nice and easy, and then put it in the oven and bake it. Catfish is a very dense fish, and it's going to take a long time, much longer than you would imagine. So when you think it's done, take your finger and poke into it. If it goes through and kind of has no resistance, if it has a lot of resistance, you got to still cook it, because you'll be amazed at the length of time. It might, like 10 minutes or so, above and beyond what you would think. So, and then you can make a sauce. You could take some butter, melt it down, put a little bit of white wine and lemon juice in it, cook it till it's nice and creamy, put that on the plate, and then lay your catfish on top. Again, you can make this as spicy or as mild as you like. You just don't want to get the pan so hot that it blackens it. You only want it bronzing. So I love it. It's sell this at the restaurant, walleye, salmon, all the kind of fish like that.
It sounds wonderful. To be honest, I haven't eaten a lot of catfish, and I had no idea that it was a different texture than, say, a walleye or something else.
Yes, yep. It's real dense. The meat is another fish that is the same way as snapper and grouper. If you happen to get that at the fish store, or you've been down south and you caught some and you brought it back, you'll be amazed at how long it takes to cook that to make it tender and feel like it's done. So,
and I know you had a lot of experience with snappers and groupers when you were down south there years ago.
Redfish, too. We used to catch a lot of redfish down there. And we used to do swordfish like that, too, also, because we caught a lot of them out the ocean when you could catch them by hook and line.
You have had an interesting career, David.
Oh, boy, yeah. Caught a lot of big sharks, too. I caught a 700-pound hammerhead. After we gutted it out, it took 4 of us to lift it on the car and strapped it down and drove it around Fort Lauderdale, A1A, until the cops told me, don't do it. I mean, I proudly presented my shark, the biggest one I ever got, with just like you would a deer around here.
I've heard that story before. That's a good one. All right, my friend, hang in there, hunker down. We'll talk to you next week.
You too, Michael. Everybody try to be safe so we can enjoy the summer and fishing and hunting to its fullest.
Wonderful.
Enjoy the bounty that we're going to cook.
Words of advice from wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. But you know what? You are the most important part. If you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this, and, well, I'd be very sad. Hey, check out the website and the Facebook page, and you can always hit me up on email address, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and we'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.